live from Long Island, New York. It's Love, Death, and Taxes. And I hope you guys are ready for what could possibly be one of our most controversial shows today, Race, Religion, and Politics and Relationships. Can we talk part three? And guess what? It's race, religion, and politics, but we absolutely did it in the opposite order, Agnes.
Yes.
Politics we did 3 weeks ago, religion we did last week, and now this week we're doing race. We're going to be talking about race in relationships and race. All right. We'll talk in just a second. Ladies and gents, this is Love, Death, and Taxes. All right. So we are not live all the time on Facebook. We have to like repost on Facebook. So if you've seen this later on, you'll see it. But I'm in a great mood to talk about this. We actually had to do a little warm up. Hi, Agnes. How are you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm
Any
great.
great plans for the weekend?
Yeah. Are you changing the subject?
Any dates coming up?
You know what? Not necessarily. Nothing particularly great. I know next week is Halloween, so that's going to be fun. Are you going to Halloween parties this weekend? Or what's going on?
No, I'll be guarding the door and distributing candies.
Oh, okay. You're one of those. Yeah, I take the kids, so we'll be out. But no, this is possibly could be a scary episode. I'll tell you that much because we're going to be talking about race in relationships and how that affects relationships. How sometimes two races can be affected in their relationship. Also, how people's different opinions and or thoughts about race can affect how they behave in their relationships as well. All right, so what do you think we should start with this? Well, okay, let's assume we have two people and those two
Yeah.
people are the same race. Maybe they're black, maybe they're white, whatever it is. How crazy is it to get into a relationship and then later on find out that someone has a completely different thought about or directive towards race than you actually do, huh?
You know what? It happens so much. I mean, it's very easy to overlook certain issues or certain subjects. You get together, you fall in love. Oh my God, he's gonna be this or she's gonna be that, and the very first mistake, especially young women make. Oh, no problem. He can be this or that. He would change because he will love me. I would change him. That never happens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and a lot of things people just they assume a lot of things like, oh, we're getting along. He will be looking or she will be looking at life through the same set of eyes. And that rarely happens. People are different. That's what makes life more exciting, that we are different. But at the end of the day, just like any other issue, if we respect each other, uh, uh, if we love one another, if people tolerate each other, especially with their relationship, they will be able to discuss and approach to the subject in a matter of with respect to each other without having arguments or having fights. Let's say, no, well, Thanksgiving it's coming up, Thank God the election is afterwards, so not before, because there will be a lot of injuries at the dinner. Yeah. So this is one and the same, and a lot of people is entering into relationships without knowing everything about their partner, about their political views, about their religious views. A lot of times I notice that couples, they hide things from each other as well, and it's not exactly even your partner, as the family will be, oh, this is great, you are from this and this culture, but, oh, let's say on my example, 40 years ago, if I would tell my mother I'm going to marry an Italian, she would say, "Hell no, it's not happening. You're going to marry a Polish man. That's it," because that's the way it was. Now, my husband, who is has Italian roots, he's embraced by my family and loved and cherished like no other. So there is, 4 decades, it's a lot of changes,
Yeah.
but Italian and Polish culture are almost one and the same.
Is that interesting?
Maybe different dishes at the table, but the culture is extremely the same. Where there are still cultures where even if you convert nowadays, you are not exactly being embraced by the family.
Yeah, it would be different. I
Yes.
and honestly, if we're gonna go personal, uh, now when I got married, I married a Vietnamese woman, and while she and I were like, "Hey, we're Neapolitans, we're coastal elites, we live here in New York, we're kind of open to everything, we talk to everybody, not a big deal, whatever, whatever." I found out that both in my Jamaican family and in her Vietnamese family, there were people who had an issue with us being together. And sometimes it would be overt, like people would straight up do things where you know that that's the reason why they're doing it. And then there are sometimes there's little, what we now refer to as, in the colloquialism, we now refer to as microaggressions, like little things that they would do that wouldn't necessarily point towards the race, but that's really the underlying thing of what they were doing. So it's interesting that you say that, because depending on the level, you would have conversations. Sometimes it was just curiosity, like, "Oh, did you put on some pounds so that you could, be with that guy?"
Okay.
So we're not even going to go into, but then there were also like overt jokes that were complete, made me feel like, oh my gosh, these people might be racist. Like, and I'm telling you about people on both sides,
Yes.
like
Yes.
really, really both sides. And it's a weird thing. Race is an interesting thing from country to country. The way race is handled in different places. Um, in Jamaica, race is less about what you look like as opposed to what financial class you fit into. And it is assumed that by the color of your skin, you fit into certain classes until they find out that you're somewhere else. So a light-skinned person is generally thought, or a white person, or a Syrian, or an Asian person is generally thought they are in the upper class. But they will withhold that judgment until they find out that no, you're not. You're actually down here with this, and then they treat you accordingly. It's very interesting. It's more about a class, and that's probably because we are heavily influenced by the British. But here in the United States, the behavior and the attitudes towards race are just there, and that's what it is, no matter what. Even if you are highly educated, they see you going to Harvard, they assume you're going to be doing really, really well. You're still a black guy, or you're still an Asian, or you're still a white, or you still, you know what I mean? You still are in those places regardless. A lot of things have been changing because there are a lot of mixed races. And I see a lot of grandparents now, like white grandparents with mixed grandkids,
Yeah.
and black grandparents with mixed grandkids. It's very interesting to see them having to recalibrate all their thoughts about racism and deal with that.
I went to high school with a fella who definitely was mixed race. There's
Mhm.
now I know his
Now
features
you know.
were different. His
Okay. Okay.
features were different. His skin was darker,
Mhm.
and his mom was raising him by herself in my little town. And we were no. He is Polish, of course he is. Like, yeah,
Well,
right.
well,
So like,
technically, he's Polish as a countryman, but he's
yeah, by
not.
birth or whatever, but his roots,
Yeah,
they must
racially,
have been.
he's.
There's no freaking way. There's no freaking way. I mean, like, I just don't believe it. But of course there was hush hush because God forbid,
Yes,
you just
you're gonna
don't
have that
talk about
conversation.
when actually an African uh, family came to ask for hand in marriage of a daughter from someone from a little town. I mean, they were talking for years about that. For years, they came, they brought bananas, they brought oranges, something like. Okay, because that's exactly what you bring when you're coming from Africa. So that's
Well, here's the thing. That's such an interesting thing that you say that because as a Jamaican, you just show up, right? We're much more British. You just show up and you say to the parents, "Hey, I would like to marry your daughter." Blah 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 blah. But the Vietnamese actually expected me to show up and my family to show up with trays of oranges and no, seriously. So it's funny
right
that you say
price,
that.
right price.
But from a cultural, yeah, that's her bride price. From a cultural perspective, you're looking at the Africans and looking at them as weird. But as Jamaicans, we're looking at these Vietnamese people like, what are they doing? Why do we need to bring bananas? Why do we do? And yes, I had to deliver and ask them out, take them to a nice dinner, blah 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 blah, and the whole deal. As a matter of fact, when one of her uncles got married to an American woman, he performed the full Vietnamese ceremony with his entire family, like a long, a long train of us all carrying oranges and bananas and different fruits and whatever to these people's house. And like size, literally we were set up so that the smallest person came last with the smallest thing, but the most valuable thing, and the person at the top was bringing like literally a
I
big
don't know
tray.
if I would want to think of myself to have a value of how many
Well,
pounds of
see,
bananas and
that
oranges
is
or a
very,
goat or
very,
a something.
that is very European of you. You don't think you have a bride price.
And it's like, okay, I have to put a few more pounds to have my price in gold.
Exactly. How about that? And technically, maybe Indian, because I know that as well. One of the things that you give at an Indian wedding is gold. Like you adorn them with gold, you put them on with gold, you bring gold to the wedding. Because I've been to multiple Indian weddings. So I had friends from Jamaica and even here in New York, where yeah, one of the preferred thing is the gold, and it's not so much that you are going to wear it, you keep it so that if you have an issue later on in life, you can use it, sell it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
buy because gold holds it value. Gold is always
Roma
so
culture is the same. There's a
uh,
lot of gifts they prefer, like gold.
yeah,
Absolutely.
because
And they have a big gathering before getting married.
mhm.
Um, but we getting off subject because like we
Are we though?
country in this country we are faced with um melting pot is a melting pot. We see everybody and we see everything, but there is always that assumption. There's always that assumption, and the old stories, the bad experiences, the bad meetings. It stays like, oh, okay, because friend of mine got hurt by this, let's say a Polish woman left her. I have a neighbor, her ex-husband was Polish, so it's like, oh,
Never again.
my ex-husband was Polish and his whole family was Polish, and it's like, okay, I'm not related to him, maybe. So,
That's right.
like, so there is always that assumption, and there's I see a lot of times, even when I went years ago to do my hair, and this Jewish lady talks to me about, oh, you know what? Our rabbi got married to a Polish woman. She converted and she got blonde hair just like yours. And she won't let me do her hair. I'm thinking maybe she doesn't want you to see that she's coloring, just like I'm coloring my hair, and that's not my real color. But that was, and then when she started talking about her, she was putting her down because she was not born into the religion, into the community. So, and you know what? That's just, I felt for that lady, that rabbi's wife, because, like, do you know how much she had to go through to convert? How many rules and regulations? How much she had to learn? How much she had to sacrifice to become part of his daily life? It's and the same thing happens in a lot of different communities here. It's like, okay, you convert, but you just want to be.
Yeah.
You
You
converted,
just
but you're gonna be wannabe.
you're
You're
just
not
doing it
gonna be.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for whatever reason. But it's true. I guess who was it? And this came up recently too. That it's not easy to make these conversions, but I guess if you've decided these are the people and what's interesting is this is racial, religious slash social, like all mixed together because you'd have to convert only if you're going into like one of these racial groups that's like maybe a Jewish or maybe an Arab or have to move into those different groups. So yeah, if you're going to be with them, many of them they're both their race and their religion go hand in hand. It's very very interesting to see how people have to deal with that stuff. Like, but okay, say you're in a relationship with a person who is definitely a different race than yours, and all of a sudden you find out that there are little things that they expect or thought they were going to expect.
That there are
But
little things, okay?
yeah,
That's a
you
problem. That would be a problem. Yeah.
a little thing, you're being rude. Stop. But there are little issues.
That would be a problem. Yes.
Right. And then we can't agree. Like this is one of the questions, right? Hi, Agnes. My girlfriend and I come from different racial backgrounds, and we can't agree on which holidays or traditions to celebrate together. Actually, I think that's an easy question. We could deal with that in another. This is a better one.
Everything. The answer is just embrace everything.
Do them all, right? Just do them all. I know,
Absolutely.
I know people who are Muslim, and the husband, it's an Indian woman, and her husband was Roman Catholic Spanish guy, and he converted to Islam to be with her. They still put up the Christmas tree. They don't have kids. And in fact, she says she used to put up a Christmas tree even before, and she's Muslim. So it said nothing to do with it. So just have fun and go live your life and no
More joy. Bring more joy into life. Nothing's wrong with that.
And then yeah, getting stares and rude comments. I see this one here when we're out together or even with family, and they're like, "Oh, we're starting to affect we feel about going out in public." I'm like, listen, you're going to have to. I say this about both people who are LGBTQ and people who are in interracial relationships. You're going to have to buck it up. You're going to have to suck it up because there are going to be people who are not going to like it.
Been there.
Yeah.
Been there personally.
Yeah.
Been there
Okay.
personally years ago, a couple decades ago. I was walking with my boyfriend at the time, who was who was African American, and yes, the stairs. Oh my God, because we were walking holding hands. Oh my God, and it it was so new to me.
Mhm.
It made me feel uncomfortable, make
Of
him feel
course,
uncomfortable.
of course.
And he was older than me. He was always, even on the beach, he was always wearing suit and tie. He was well educated. It's like it wasn't like walking with the pants down, and then I'm walking on high heels, and oh my God, like we were not that different. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So, and yes, it was a lot of issues, and God only knows how much hell he got from his friends, and when we got when we get together with his friends and their wives.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just didn't work out, right?
that was the problem. That was the
You,
problem.
you
I
stand
was
out
just,
like a sore thumb. I know exactly what you're
no,
talking about.
I'm just sitting there. They were completely ignoring me, completely ignoring me.
Really,
That was
they were mean.
that was automatic. You're not one of us. We don't want to talk to you. Do
That's
whatever. He got over his head from his friends, female friends, being called sellout and other things. So there was a lot of problems. My girlfriend who married African American, and she had a child from prior marriage. The child was called Cracker all the time because they lived in um, more black neighborhood than she just went there moving in with him. So yes, there was a small child who was constantly crying why he's being called this way.
right.
So there's yeah, a lot of fun stories that that I could say, but I'll stop on that. There is a lot of misconception. There is, but again, that was with me. That was 3 decades ago. It was a little bit different. Nowadays, no one pays any attention. I
Mm,
I noticed that because you know what, when I see couple like in a relationship like I used to be in,
mhm.
it's I pay more attention just because I remember how it felt. No one is even looking in their direction. Nowadays it's more common,
Yes,
it's more flowing, you know. So it's more open, it's more people are more accepting,
right,
and it's no more jumping into conclusion. There's no
right.
more jumping into conclusion the way it used to be.
Yeah, based on where we live too. We live in a place where it's not. It would definitely be frowned upon for you to say or act in a way that is discriminatory. And every now and then, this is New York, so every now and then we get these weird things about Jewish people. We get sometimes against Black people. There was a weird rash of attacks on Asian people, like right after the pandemic. But we know what that was about, just because of the
Yeah.
pandemic. Um, but in general, in New York, especially in metropolitan New York City, Long Island, down here in the South, that is frowned upon a lot. But I understand you go to certain different. We used to drive around. We used to drive down to Florida. So as we're driving through and going to like places like Virginia, places like further down south and whatever Carolinas, it was un it was less common. It was uncommon, and so sometimes yes, we got a lot more looks. And there was I mean, literally, people would come up to me and ask me things like, "Uh, you were in the service? You met her when you were in the service?" So assuming that, yeah, I the only reason why, or the only way I met and married this Asian woman was because I
Y-
was I
Yeah,
was
yeah, you
over
just went
in
there, yes.
yeah, it's like, I couldn't just met her here in New York. It's New York. saw her, met her, blah blah blah. What do you want to do? But it's a very very interesting um, life and situation right here with that social situation here in New York, and in a relationship. What that seems interesting because at least you are on the same. If you're on the same wavelength, then great. But if you are not, and that one person, your person is dismissive of what they see is happening to you, or you are particularly sensitive to racial things, and the other person just is not understanding, then you can have a whole bunch of issues. But you know what? That could also go for men and women. You know, I see women all the time being mistreated and or dismissed because they are female. Oh, your emotions aren't valid. Your ambitions to become whatever it is you want to become. Oh, that's not serious. And as a man, sometimes I feel like that is almost the exact same thing between. Have you felt like that is an issue? Well,
Do
you're
you
hope.
have enough time? We can talk about it.
Exactly.
Let me tell you, from the
That's
very
another show.
beginning, I enter a workforce.
Yeah.
I experience everything from
Mm,
sexual harassment to being put down as a woman, as an immigrant, as anything and everything, and or I had to listen to stupid jokes that they were regarding either my body parts or oh, there could be yeah, you can get a race if I get one, things like that. So I had to learn, and I became quite thick-skinned person. I had to learn to rebuttal this, and instead taking this personally,
yeah.
I just adopted a very, very important rule in my life. Don't argue with idiots.
Mhm.
If that's the only response you can come up with to me, then that's what you're gonna get back. And with stupid jokes, I just rebuttal, and guess what? I always got what I wanted.
Yeah. A lot of times for me, it was my rule was what you think about me is none of my business. I don't even care. I'm on a mission. I'm going to get things done. And those goals that I have to get done, you're not going to get in the way of. If it takes me longer, if it takes me more effort because you're interfering, I'll figure out a way around that. But for the most part, I've got certain things that I just wanted to do, and I was just going to push through and not worry about these people. You know who? As you were speaking, I started to think about the woman who is trying to become president right now, and how and she's actually married to a Jewish man, a white Jewish man, and how she's moving to the top spot, one of the most important jobs in the world, and how I see her dismissing all of the racial stuff, even though it's coming up, and a lot of microaggressions too. Like it's coming up, but she seems to be just like brushing it aside and just pushing forward because she knows it's not a good look. It's the thing people hate a lot in this country. If you actually complain about racial attacks, even though they are racial attacks, like that is not um, something that people are comfortable with, so they kind of try to stay away from it. I'm I'm very interested to see more about their particular relationship because that seems to be an issue. Not only is she a high-powered individual as a woman and a black woman at that, an Indian woman at that, and a Jamaican at that, But then on top of that, she's married to a white Jewish man. So that to them has to be blowing people's minds. What do you think
Well,
about that?
she represents America, melting pot between their marriage.
She's got the whole thing.
Okay, she's got whole thing going on. So that's one. For women specifically, and not only for women, for everybody, but for women, it's very important not to be distracted. It's very difficult to stay focused and stay on track because your enemies, they will try to look for that button with your weakness. This, if you find it, if you press it, people start talking. When they start talking, oh, you think this, oh, I did this or I did that, people start giving out the informations that they should not be revealed. I
Right.
don't like to do that. I don't talk when I get upset. I don't give my enemy information. Oh, you think this, I'm gonna do this. Why would I give them my plan, my
Exactly.
action plan? I'm not going to do that. And guess what? If you are attacking me with stupidity, I'm not going to respond.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah,
not worthy of my time. You're not worthy of my attention. I have a path ahead of me that I'm going to walk, and no matter what's going to be thrown at me, I'm going to just brush it aside
yeah.
and keep going. And I'm going to have control, especially specifically. Look, she's 59, I'm 56. We're almost the same age.
She just turned 60. Like this
Oh,
week was
okay.
her
Well,
birthday. Yeah, I
yeah.
thought that was interesting.
So it's at this age, a lot of women already have control over their emotions, and they know that arguing with idiots, where that's gonna get you? Nowhere.
Yeah. My mother,
Completely nowhere.
my
So
mother used to say, when you see two idiots, when you see two people fighting in the street, both of them look like idiots to you because you can't really tell who's the idiot, or who's wrong, or who's not. But everybody looks really like a dumb person. So yeah, I get it. I get
you
it. She's
cannot
not.
be
I guess
distracted.
you're saying she's not engaging for that reason. But I think it's really interesting that yeah, one of the first things was, is she Indian or is she black? Is she black or is she Indian? Is she? She's everything, bro. She's both. She can be. She's biracial, and it's interesting that there are people who still can't wrap that around. Actually, he's an 80-something-year-old man. Of course, he can't wrap it around his head. Sometimes 80-something-year-old people are not.
The mentality
Yeah,
is different, much
yeah,
slower. They cannot
exactly.
comprehend
Like
everything.
you said, 30 years ago, it was handled a certain different way, and nowadays,
Yeah.
what? What? That's a big deal. Nobody's even looking at you.
If I would have showed you my my DNA composition, it's so exotic that I feel very special
Yeah,
because of what I have in me, and I truly believe that every single piece contributes to make me of who I am.
expressing
And
itself. Hmm.
yes, absolutely. And I embrace that. I have a lot more than different parts than Kamala has, although we do have
Yeah.
the Indian thing going on together,
Okay.
Um,
That's it. And who knows what her father has? Because as a Jamaican, I'm telling you, I've got Indian, I've got Scottish, I've got black, I've got British. It's a whole mishmash because number one, yes, there was slavery, but then on top of that, um, the colonies were also a place where they sent indentured laborers, and sometimes people who they considered to be, enemies of their state. So you could be from Ireland or Scotland and they send you away or lock you up or send you to hard labor in the colonies. And then they just don't come back. They stay out there and do whatever it is they do. So we're all these things mixed up. There's Asian people there. And when I mean Asian, I mean Chinese and Korean. One of my best friends in high school was freaking Korean. It's so weird, but we're all this. They literally, our motto is out of many, one people. So you end up having all this stuff in you. But then, yeah, it's so ridiculous, absolutely so ridiculous. that people don't recognize that once you are able to mate with that person, guess what? You're the same race. We just happen to be slightly off a little bit. You're all the same race. And if you're talking about donkeys, donkeys and horses, and you produce a mule, and the mule cannot actually express its genetic information any further, that's a different thing. But we're all blended here, man.
Look,
And you know, I'm putting this up on YouTube. We're gonna see whether or not this is gonna be a problem. But it's truth. Anybody who actually knows about the construct we refer to as race knows I'm talking the truth. It's all ridiculous.
just
Absolutely ridiculous.
embrace it. Embrace it. If more of us will just embrace and see beauty in it,
Yeah,
life
absolutely.
would have been much easier. Instead, differences. Just life becomes more beautiful,
Yeah.
more exciting, and to find out that and finding that's the journey that I had. I started finding out. Oh my goodness! And then, like on 23andMe, they show you you have part of this and part of that, and they give you information about the culture. I'm like, oh yes. So that's why I like this. That's why to me that was like a big gift life gave me, and just to embrace it and be happy with it and celebrate yourself. Just celebrate yourself and move on. It still doesn't make any difference to your choices you made in life. It doesn't make I don't think that should influence when you find out who you are on the inside, what makes you the way you are, like like 60 years old, and then you go, oh, find out, okay, well, continue, just embrace it and move on and
Here you
continue
are.
walking your path, and just celebrate yourself and move on and be kind to one another.
So funny that you say this because I just saw this YouTube video, and when you guys are ready, go look it up. Fred Armisen, the comedian who used to be on Saturday Night Live, and then he's on these different shows, some bunch of other shows. But Fred Armisen thought he was the child of um, a German woman and a Japanese man. And as it turns out, they did his ancestry. You know, that little guy who sits there, he does the ancestry and he pulls up all your DNA. And then he actually went and tried, because of the DNA results, they're like, what? So then they go and look and they find out he's not Japanese. He is Korean. Now, for some people, that doesn't mean anything. They don't even understand what the difference is. It's actually somewhat of a slight difference because his father actually acted like he was Japanese and nobody knew any better. He just changed his name and did. So genetically, they look like they're sort of kind of thing. But if you actually look at more Asian people, you can tell a Korean separate from a Japanese person. And his entire culture is very, very different. Korean culture versus,
Yeah.
and he was freaking out because he's like, this whole time I've been telling people that I'm part Japanese and I'm blah blah blah, and his mind was blown because now he found himself to be not Japanese, but one of the people who the Koreans at one point were under subjugation by the Japanese. And so now he sees himself in a completely different way. That is amazing and
It
can
is a shock.
completely change. Yeah.
It is a shocking information, and I went through the same thing.
Mhm.
I found out when I was 49 my genetical makeup, and it was, it took my breath away for a moment. I had
And
to
what made sense.
digest, I had to digest that before the joy overwhelmed me. And I started celebrating everything. It took me a while. It did
Yeah.
took me a while because a lot of secrets start coming out. And it's like, excuse me, what? Wait a minute. What? It's like,
It's literally that's what he said. He said, "What? How come nobody told me this?" He was
yeah,
freaking out. He could
yeah.
not believe that he was He was not Japanese. He was Korean and did not. And then when you look at his face, I'm like, I guess you could have known. But the German expresses itself
I thought
actually
it was
more than
fun.
it did. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing. Yeah, you look at the guy,
Yeah.
he's like, what?
Look, life is full of surprises, and no matter where we live, like my husband and I, we like love to travel, and it's beautiful to go and see. Like when we went to Switzerland, I went through cultural shock because middle of the day people leave their scooters and bikes like on the middle of the sidewalk. They go into work, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna be gone like in a moment. Then we are we are walking back a few hours later. They're still there. It was like, what happened? Why? And then their beautiful diamonds are in the window overnight, over weekend. No one puts them away or anything, and there's no crime,
Yeah,
and there's you know the political makeup of the country, enforcement of certain punishments working. They're really
yeah,
working, and it's one of the safest places. I could be there in the middle of the night, and you know and nothing happens, and I felt very, very safe. And there's
that's right.
more freedom there than in any a lot of different countries. But just going different places, observing how people behave, learning their culture, um it kind of, you can see why they're so closed in, that they are not accepting others coming in with different culture. And there's another thing. I truly believe that when someone is coming, because that's how I adopt. I came from Poland all this, almost 4 decades ago. I came here. What did I do? I didn't start enforcing, okay, now, no, you have to learn my language. You have to learn my culture. You have to learn what I'm doing. You have to adapt to me. No,
Yeah,
I felt like, okay, I'm a guest, I'm coming in. So if I want to live here, I have to adopt. I have to open my mind. I have to learn new things. I cannot come and start enforcing my rules. I have to obey by rules and regulations of where I am.
yes, absolutely.
Because if you want this to be your new home, no one asked you to come here. If this is, what I mean? It's like, I can't imagine a guest coming into my home and start demanding, oh no, you have to do this, you have to start acting like this, and this. I'll be like, you know what? Here at the door, you're no longer welcome.
You can get out.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know.
but I
So,
know exactly what you're talking about because they were having issues there with people from different religions who decided that their religion had to be expressed on everybody else. But at the same time, they also had the issue where those people were just, okay, I'm going to wear, like they were wearing hijab or whatever. And people had problems with them wearing their hijab. And I'm like, well, you kind of sort of have to leave them alone. And that is where America is kind of works out in that way, in that you're not supposed to have church and state together. And whoever comes, you can live your life however you want, as long as you don't impinge upon the freedom of others. But I know exactly what you're
yeah,
talking about because, regardless, they have a great system there. And that's what you should do. You show up and you're like in a great system, and people are literally saying to you, there's no poverty here. You don't have to steal anything. If you ask, you will receive. So just calm the heck down and get into it. It's fantastic to actually see that. But yeah, we've gone way over. I think this was a great conversation. If you are interested in hearing more about, please send us an email at mailbag at love, death, and taxes. If you're looking for some tax help, you're the deadline really is gone at this point. But if you
yeah.
need one, still want to go to nytaxresolutions.com, and we don't have any judgments here about whatever it is that you're doing. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please like and subscribe our channel here, and I hope to see you guys next week here at Love, Death, and Taxes. Bye.
Have a beautiful
Bye.
weekend.
All right, you too.